and it wasn't until Abraham Lincoln, we didn't win, the Union didn't win because they had military might. They won because they came to God's side. And Robert E. And once that changed, then I think that's where the war changed, and that's where things started to develop into the Union's favor. And it wasn't until we're watching a bunch of different movies and studying a lot of different things all at the same time about where families were, what type of attitudes families had on the Confederacy side, on the Union side. The North, certainly, just because it was the North, it didn't mean that they didn't have slavery there, and it didn't mean that they didn't have all sorts of different issues as well. Just a quick case in point, in Abraham Lincoln's second term, there was a lot in the North that didn't like him because he won by a plurality. He didn't win by popularity. There were two people running. There were two other presidential candidates, and so he didn't win because he was just so popular, right? He won by a plurality, and so what that meant was there was a lot of people even in the North that didn't want him to, that didn't like him, and so
Yep.
and they were basically slave states, and but they were kind of landlocked, and there were people simultaneously. There were people in the South that were free states, but they were landlocked. So you have, like the Free State of Jones, which is in Alabama, which is a county that says we're not for the slavery thing. We're done. Of course, Virginia splits during the Civil War, and I my heart goes out to Robert E. Lee because he says, "Hey, I'm a Virginian." But then after the war begins and it starts to develop, Virginia becomes Virginia and West Virginia, and so it becomes two completely different states over that issue. And so a lot of the counties move and become their own state. And then lots of other, some states are formed differently. Here in Tennessee is very interesting because we were talking about families, brother against brother, and it really shows that here in Tennessee because the Civil War history here is they had three different votes for secession because there's kind of three buckets of Civil War history. There's the secession, there's the war, and then there's abolitionism, right? Slavery, non-slavery. And in Tennessee, they had three different sessions to vote on secession. So it's kind of a bit of a mouthful, but the first session they had to vote on secession, the way that it worked is Tennessee has three parts to it, and I apologize for being complicated, but it's actually kind of nuanced. So Tennessee has East, Middle, and West Tennessee. So East Tennessee did not want to secede from the Union. They did not want to participate in the Civil War, and they were for abolitionism. So they did not want slavery.